Before the 2006 film, Borat became a worldwide hit. Few people outside of Central Asia or Russia knew that the country of Kazakhstan existed. Needless to say, many citizens of the Central Asian former Soviet Republic found the movie's representation of them as backward, violent anti-Semitic people to be unfair and, for the most part, unfounded. A closer look reveals that Kazakhstan is actually a complex place, where modern ideas and sensibilities are woven together with centuries-old traditions. The people of the landlocked nation are proud of their heritage, which can be traced back to the horseback-riding Huns of the 5th century. During the Middle Ages, the majority of the people converted to Islam, which is the majority religion today. As part of the Soviet Union, Kazakhstan suffered at times, particularly during the famine of 1932-33, when over 60% of its population died. Kazakhstan was also home to many of the notorious Soviet gulags, where political prisoners were sent, often to die. Although Kazakhstan has had a difficult history, today it is far from the backward country portrayed in Borat. Economically speaking, it is the dominant Central Asian nation thanks to its rich oil reserves and deposits of other valuable minerals. Kazakhstan repaid all of the debt it owed to the International Monetary Fund, is 7 years ahead of schedule, and today its people enjoy one of the highest standards of living in the region. Kazakhstan's post-Soviet economy may be relatively strong, but its political system is another story. Technically, Kazakhstan's government is a constitutional republic, but it has been plagued with accusations of human rights abuses and political violence. Nursultan Nazarbayev has been the country's only president since independence in 1991, which critics point to as evidence of Kazakhstan being a republic in name only. Democracy activists and critics of Nazarbayev argue that Kazakhstan's secret police service, known as the KNB, which is essentially the local successor to the Soviet KGB, has manipulated every election since independence through a combination of coercion, threats, and at times outright violence against stop position groups. The Economist lists Kazakhstan as an authoritarian regime and points to the courts as being the primary reason. There is no equivalent of Miranda rights in Kazakhstan, and there is no independent judiciary. All Supreme Court judges are appointed by the president. Truly, contemporary Kazakhstan is a sometimes bizarre mix of the old and new worlds, where it is not uncommon to see former KGB agents rub elbows with multimillionaire businessmen at upscale restaurants in the country's capital of Astana, or the largest city of Almaty. It was within this sometimes volatile social and political milieu that a series of the most mysterious deaths in Kazakhstan's modern history took place. Rakhat Aliyev was born in the Soviet Socialist Republic of Kazakhstan in 1962. His early years were spent like most children around the world at the time, playing soccer with his friends and spending time with his family. But by the time Aliyev was a young adult, the winds of change were in the air. The concepts of glasnost and perestroika that Mikhail Gorbachev and the Communist Party was introduced to modernize and save the crumbling Soviet Union, ironically led it to a quicker demise. With the total collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the old constituent republics, such as Kazakhstan, scrambled to find their place in the New World Order. The 1990s became a period of great transition in the former Soviet republics, where large amounts of money could be earned and an even greater number of enemies could be made in doing so. Rakhat Aliyev found his place in the new system. Aliyev obtained a law degree in 1997 and a PhD in economics in 2005, which prepared him for a lucrative career in post-Soviet Kazakhstan's often shady worlds of business and government. He made several lucrative investments and inserted himself into the functions of many government industries. Aliyev also was a member of the KNB and worked his way through the ranks of the organization, thanks in part to his relationship with the president. Aliyev was married to President Nazarbayev's daughter, Dariga, for many years. The couple had 3 children over their decades-long marriage, and by all accounts looked happy. They were one of Kazakhstan's top power couples, and it was rumored that Aliyev would be his father-in-law's successor. But in 2007, Rakhat Aliyev found out that even the bonds of matrimony were not enough to protect him from the wrath of the president. 2007 was a bad year for Rakhat Aliyev. Up until that time, he had led a charmed life. He was a millionaire and was at the pinnacle of power in the Kazakhstan government. His wife was the favored daughter of the country's leader, and every business deal he made seemed to end favorably. Before 2007, Aliyev must have felt that the sky was the limit. But as easily as the gods can give one power, they can take it away. Aliyev began to fall out of favor with the president when he was accused of laundering money embezzled from government corporations in Kazakhstan to offshore accounts in the Mediterranean. The charges were bad enough alone, but President Nazarbayev soon learned that his son-in-law was questioning his rule and possibly collaborating with the opposition. Rakhat Aliyev was living on borrowed time. Aliyev was next served divorce papers from his wife via fax. He later claimed that his wife told him that she was pressured to do so by her father. But Dariga has been reticent to talk about the divorce in the years since. Rakhat was then given the post of ambassador to Austria, where he would ostensibly be out of the president's hair, and the government could move forward, making a case of treason against him. With few friends left in Kazakhstan, Aliyev married his former assistant and moved to Austria, where he took his post. While Aliyev was out of the country, Kazakhstan authorities worked to make sure that he could never return a free man or alive. The crimes that brought Rakhat Aliyev to the front of the international news cycle was not embezzlement or treason, though, but a double murder that took place in Kazakhstan. The details of the crimes remain sketchy and will probably never be totally known. But based on a combination of eyewitness accounts and circumstantial evidence, some of the important details and a reasonable chronology can be reconstructed. As mentioned above, Rakhat Aliyev used a combination of his skills, education, and Soviet-era connections to enrich himself both monetarily and in terms of power in the post-Soviet Kazakhstan government. One of the ways he did this was by using his influence in the government to land lucrative business deals, one of which was with the Kazakhstan-based bank, Nurbank. By January 2007, Aliyev owned 75% of Nurbank, but to him, it was more than just another revenue stream or job. It was a family operation. His father owned a small percentage, and his son was on the board. Essentially, Nurbank was Aliyev's fiefdom, and if things did not go as he liked, trouble was bound to happen. According to the testimony of the victims, on January 18, 2007, Aliyev had vice president of Nurbank, Aholdas Timraliye, and chairman Abilmajen Gilimov, was kidnapped and threatened. The two men were nabbed in broad daylight as they left work for the day, and then driven around Almaty, where they were threatened with death if they did not go along with Aliyev's investment ideas. The two men were able to escape their captors, and both promptly quit work at Nurbank the next day. But apparently, Aliyev had other recalcitrant Nurbank executives to target. Less than 2 weeks later, on January 31st, Timraliyev was kidnapped once more, along with Aybar Kasanov, who was chairman of the bank's board. The two men were beaten and tortured over the course of several days, but during the course of the ordeal, Timraliyev was able to call his wife to alert her of the situation. Although Timraliyev's wife phoned authorities to find her husband, it was too late. He and Kasanov were killed, placed in metal drums, and dropped off in a dump. Once the bodies of the two men were found, Aliyev became the prime suspect, but the slick bureaucrat was still in the good graces of the president, who gave Aliyev diplomatic immunity and a chance to start over in Austria. Aliyev's flight from Kazakhstan proved to be only a temporary remedy to his legal problems. Not long after he left the country, the divorce from his wife became final, and the government began to investigate him for a slew of charges, ranging from embezzlement to treason and murder. But the fallen businessman did not help himself much. From the perceived safety of such locations as Austria and Malta, Aliyev began to give interviews to the international press in early 2007. He said that he thought Nazarbayev should not be president for life, and that the government of Kazakhstan was inherently corrupt. Aliyev would later put all of his thoughts about his former father-in-law into a tell-all 2013 book titled Godfather-in-Law. Aliyev's ungrateful attitude proved to be too much for President Nazarbayev, who in May 2007 allowed the government of Kazakhstan to change his former son-in-law with murder and kidnapping in relation to the Nurbank case. Aliyev was promptly stripped of his diplomatic immunity, and an international arrest warrant was issued for him. By late 2007, Rakhat Aliyev was a man without a country. For a time, Aliyev found safety in Austria. The Austrian government refused to extradite Aliyev because it argued that he could not receive a fair trial there, and that if convicted he would be punished in a way that would violate his human rights. Despite this, the government of Kazakhstan pushed ahead with the prosecution and convicted Aliyev in absentia of murder, treason, and kidnapping in early 2008, and sentenced him to 20 years in prison. The Austrian government continued to refuse to recognize Kazakhstan's extradition requests, which gave Aliyev the chance to travel around Europe relatively unencumbered. But the heat was on, and Aliyev was quickly running out of options. The Austrian government revoked Aliyev's special passport in 2013, which left the embattled Kazakhstani with few countries that would accept him. After a failed attempt to find sanctuary in Cyprus, Aliyev ended up in the Mediterranean island nation of Malta in 2014. While in Malta with his new wife, Aliyev turned himself into Austrian authorities. Time was running out for Rakhat Aliyev. Instead of fighting the case in Malta, where he probably would have been turned over to the Kazakhstanis at some point, Aliyev surrendered to the Austrians on a host of international charges he was facing. He reasoned that an impartial Austrian jury would see through the charges as politically motivated. All he needed was a good lawyer. In his defense, Aliyev would put the Kazakhstan government on trial. Due to the severity of the charges leveled against him, and the fact that he was a flight risk, Aliyev was placed in a maximum security prison to await trial. He was involved in altercations with other inmates, so he was placed in a cell by himself. The details of the altercation he had with the other inmates remain sketchy, but it is said that the two men did not like Aliyev's arrogant attitude. They later claimed that the altercation had nothing to do with his ties to the Kazakhstan government. Whatever the reason, Aliyev was beaten up pretty well by the inmates, which is what got him thrown into solitary confinement. The guards found Aliyev's lifeless body hanging from the bars of his cell on February 24, 2015. Due to his background and the circumstances of his incarceration, conspiracy theories immediately began to surface about Aliyev's death. Although inmates around the world routinely kill themselves by hanging, there were certainly a number of reasons to believe that Aliyev was helped along with his death by others. Aliyev was also set to testify at a future date against the two inmates who had beaten him. Some believe that one or both of the inmates may have found a way to get to Aliyev and made his death look like a suicide. It is not uncommon for inmates to pay off guards to look the other way while they conduct nefarious activities. But then again, it seems like a lot of trouble to go through to get out of a relatively minor assault charge, which leaves the most obvious culprits: President Nazarbayev and the Kazakhstan government. Aliyev's lawyer, Klaus Einetter, claims that he spoke with Rakhat the night before his death, and he showed no signs of suicidal behavior. I have significant doubts about this, without wanting to blame anyone. I visited him yesterday. There could be no talk whatsoever of danger or suicide, said Einetter. However, not everyone involved with the case believes that Aliyev's death was suspicious. For us, it was clearly suicide, said Peter Prechtel, the prison's warden. The truth behind the death of Rakhat Aliyev will probably never be known, although new details of his life paint the picture of a troubled and dangerous man. Aliyev was accused in the mid-1990s of kidnapping a Russian television executive, and he was investigated by the FBI for a 2006 murder. Whether Rakhat Aliyev's death was the result of a complex conspiracy, angry prison inmates, or at his own hands, he is a testament to the often used aphorism, "Violence begets violence." Thanks for joining us on this enthralling exploration of the mysterious death of Rakhat Aliyev. If you have any theories or insights into the case, share them in the comments below. See you in the next investigation.